You got some whiskey? I'm Ryan Beshel. I'm a fashion and media personality here in Chicago. I am a weekly correspondent on Fox. I work with startups for branding, PR, social media. I contribute to magazines and newspapers in print, be it here in the city and locally. I've been featured in Racked and Women for Daily and a bunch of other publications here in Chicago. And I'm here to share 5 tips on being your best self. Tip number 1 is know your audience. Whenever brands or people as themselves are addressing or speaking to the public, I think it's important to always know who you're speaking to. That will direct everything from what you're wearing or how you're speaking. If you're speaking more casually, or if you're in a business setting and you need to use different language or use more conservative language. Knowing your audience will kind of guide you through all of those things. Again, be it how you dress or how you speak, how you present yourself, and how you're presenting your company. When it comes to companies and brands, I always think of them as human beings. I try to think how that company would talk as a person, the things that they would like to do, the tone of their voice, how old are they, what are the people that they're hanging out with, where are they hanging out. So I think, again, whether you're representing a brand or yourself, a good way to be your best person or be your best brand is to know who you're speaking to very clearly. The second tip for being your best self is to always dress the part. I always would say when I was in college that if you want to be the CEO, dress like the CEO. People, all of us are a judgmental society, whether we want to admit it or not. Visually, what we see is what we use to create a story of that brand or that person inside of our heads before that they can speak to us. So, I always knew if I present myself in the best light, visually, if I throw on a bow tie, if I throw on a suit, people are going to think I'm a big deal. There are many times, in life, and even still, where I don't think I am. But again, you present that picture of yourself, and people are going to buy it and believe it right away. The third tip for being your best self is to always be prepared. I think that can work in a couple different ways. Quite simply, the first one would be to have information about yourself. So your business card is really important. It's the same thing as kind of dressing the part. Your business card is going to talk for you when it's sitting on someone's desk and you're not there. So paying close attention to to color and placement and even font, those things are all going to influence somebody who's reading them. I always say to put something on the back of your card as well. The first thing I do when I get someone's card is I flip it over. If there's nothing there, I'm not like, oh, this guy, I can't speak with him. But you always look. Notice that you'll do that when you grab someone's card. So I think being prepared both in your materials as well as what you want to do is very important. When I speak to students, often, I'll ask them, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And when they say, well, I'll do anything, I don't know how to help you then if you can't focus your own dreams and your own aspirations. So I think it's really important to have kind of your elevator pitch, honestly, to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm good at. I'm willing to kind of try out these areas and see if it's something that I like. But in the end, I would love to focus on trying to go into whatever that is. My next tip for being your best self is not to be hyper-focused on what it is you want to do. I know before we spoke, I spoke a bit about knowing what industry and the things that you desire going into. But some people I meet are so intent on the one job that they have to have that they lose sight of the entire path, which will absolutely never happen as an A to B direction. You're gonna go A to B, you might hit C, you may go to Z, and then come all the way back in the middle. But being open to the experiences that come to you, paying attention to those opportunities that drop into your lap when you're at a street corner and you run into somebody and they ask you for directions, and before you know it, you're speaking about what you both do, and before you know it, you could have a job interview. If you're not paying attention and staying open to those things that are coming to you, you might definitely miss some very important things. it's also important to figure out what you don't want to do. Sometimes I've done tons of internships and given away a ton of free time, only to learn at the end that I really hated what I was doing. Never look at those situations as something negative, because in essence, of the 49 million things there are that you can do in the world, you've essentially just checked one off. And so you're one step closer to the place that you want to be. My fifth tip for being your best self is to be nice. I think that is something that we often forget. Specifically, I work in the fashion industry a lot. I think the fashion industry as a whole gets a really bad rap for a lot of things. And one of those things is that people think that people in fashion just aren't nice people, which I think is crazy. And there are a lot of people who have kind of made that assumption be true. But one thing that's really helped me, go far in Chicago, and even when I'm, networking in New York or in other places, is just the refreshing fact of speaking to someone who is nice and respectful, and follows up and gets back, and isn't too kind of full of themselves, which is an easy thing to do in an industry like this. And when you've got cameras and you've got events and you've got fancy clothes and fancy people, I think the main thing is to remember to be nice. And even as I'm talking, I hear my dad in my head, to also be grateful and to know kind of where you came from and the people that were there to help support you and get you there. My dad always says to me, he says, "Ryan, never forget that you're not a big deal." And while that sounds kind of mean, it's really important to have people like that in your life that kind of knock you down off those pedestals that sometimes we put ourselves on. So always be nice. Here's a bonus tip for being your best self. I think it's always good to come up with a signature. For me, it's quite obvious that is the bow tie. I have it tattooed behind my ear, and I'm pretty much wearing one a good amount of the time. I think if you can come up with something that makes people remember who you are visually, then that's only going to kind of help you moving forward. Again, you want to back it up. Be sure that you are doing good work and responding back to people on time. But finding a signature, something, be it a piece of clothing or a cummerbund or a bow tie or your glasses, it'll make people remember who you are, so that the next time they see you, they'll be like, "Oh, you're the guy with the ... which is a good way to start a conversation, and then go on from there.